You shouldn't be making a tasteless joke in the middle of the climax of your book if you want to be taken seriously. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Morgan M. Steele. I am an author. Today we are talking about the Monster High book, Once Bitten, Twice Dead, which I finished reading this year. The hardcover is over there. I should have picked it up before I hit record. I'm gonna go grab it. Once Bitten, Twice Dead. So, basic overview. Once Bitten, Twice Dead is a story about Draculaura. She has recently lost her father, Dracula, and as a result has to come to terms with her vampirism, her humanity, and what both of them mean to her on her journey with her grief. Yeah, it has some callbacks to the original series. We get appearances from some of the other ghouls and monsters, and it's in a different continuity than the Lacey Harrison Monster High books, which have kind of always been their own universe. There's a lot of things in those books that are not canon to the rest of Monster High lore. So this is like kind of its own thing, though I don't think this is also technically canon. And for a few reasons, I am really hoping that that is not the case. So, let's get that. This is not canon. I really hope it's not canon. Let's get into this. I'm gonna do a spoiler-free review first, so this first little bit. If you're just curious about what this book is like and you want to know if you should get it or not, I didn't really like this one. Really wanted to. Last year it was a good year for me in terms of fandom books. I read Journal 3 for the very first time. I read The Book of Bill. I loved that one a lot. Like, both of those books, I guess, like, set the bar really high for me because I was expecting this to be good. I was hoping it would be good, and it just really did not hit for me. As a Monster High fan, just was not impressed with it for reasons I will get into in the spoiler section of the video. But also, like, if you don't know anything about Monster High and you're picking this up just to read it, just like out of curiosity, like, oh, I've heard of Monster High, I don't collect the dolls, but maybe we'll see what the world is like. I don't think this is the media you want to use to introduce you to that. Just, if you're a first-timer, I would, like, point you towards the webisodes or the 3D animated movies. I know they're not super readily available, but if you can get your hands on those somewhere, I think that's where you should start with media. I think, like, Ghouls Rule is a good first one, even though it's, like, kind of in the middle of those movies. Like, I think that would give you a better sense of kind of what's going on, would explain things a little better than this. I like them all. Fright On is technically their first full-length feature. You can start there and go through all the stuff, but if you want to just jump in, maybe check out Ghouls Rule. This is not a jumping in point for new fans. So, yeah, but also, as a fan, kinda didn't really like it either. So, we will get into why. It was kind of marketed as, like, oh, this is for, like, the older fans who were into the original. It's like, oh, it's darker, gets into some darker stuff, but it's for, like 20-somethings who were kids and teenagers when the original series was coming out. So I just really feel like it missed the mark for that audience, and I also, like I said, I don't really feel like this is for new fans either, because it's not G3, this is G1. The alumni ghouls, and just really not my favorite. So, yeah, so this is where the spoilers start. If you're here coming in blind and you want to read the book, go ahead and do that first. If you're here because you're curious as to why it's a hot mess, climb aboard. We are going to venture into spoiler territory now. So first things first, I think we should do a plot breakdown of, like, this book and the stuff that's in the book. So to set the scene for the rest of the novel, our opening scene, Dracula dies. It is very sad. Draculaura is there. It happens in his office at the school. He's frantically looking for some papers, and he's trying to, like, talk to her, but some blood gets mentioned or something, and Draculaura passes out, and when she wakes up, he is a pile of dust on the floor, which is so awful and traumatic. I'm so sorry, girl. She is told later that this is because there was a pharmacy mix-up. Dracula and Draculaura, this whole video, are just going to be really hard on my tongue, so I'm so sorry in advance. Dracula was at an event. He was kind of out in the sun, which apparently he has, like, some resistance to, but he did not reapply his super SPF sunscreen, and so he got some sunburns. And so to treat these burns, he was prescribed this ointment, but the ointment had silver in it, and silver is one of the things that kills vampires in this universe. So there was like a mix-up basically at the pharmacy, and that is what cost Dracula his life. And so Draculaura, in the wake of this, kind of retreats into her mansion. She has a caretaker lady there. I forget her like official title, but she's like taking care of the house, taking care of Draculaura, and they are on like summer vacation, and so she doesn't really see any of her friend group until she gets back to school. When she gets back to school, the entire friend group is treating her like she is very fragile, specifically like Frankie is kind of babying her, but the rest of them also like just have not talked to Draculaura kind of the entire summer. And so she has missed a lot of tea. We get right into it. Claudine and Toralei are dating now, which is fine. I think that's great. Love that for them. We love lesbians. We also learn that Laguna and Gil broke up, which a win is a win. A win is a win. I'm gonna take it. I hate Gil. Gil. I'm member number 1 of the Gil hate club. Really great news on that front as well. And also, because of the breakup, he transferred out of Monster High, so we don't even have to see that guy anymore. It's really great. Love this for her. And then also in passing, it is mentioned real quick that before the book even started, Draculaura and Claude broke up. Everything is fine. I'm an adult.
I need to calm down. Everything's fine.
Amanda.
I'm an adult.
No, it's actually not fine at all. They're my biggest Monster High ship. I have loved them together since forever. I do believe that they are soulmates, and so to get this so casually in passing, I was just like, what? Because Laguna was explaining her breakup with Gil. She's like, yeah, you know, it's just like, it's like what happened with you and Claude. Like, we just grew apart, and I was like, with her and Claude? Her and Claude have broken up? Are you kidding me? Had to crash out. Okay, as one does. But I love them together. I've said in many, many videos that they are my favorite Monster High couple, and so to learn just so casually that they have broken up, very unfortunate. R.I.P., pour one out. Love you, Claude. And it's also the biggest reason that I just hope this book is not canon. Like, in my head, they're together forever, living happily ever after, and that's fine. Anyway, school is not going so well for Draculaura because of, you know, all of her friends treating her kind of weird, and it's just feeling very suffocating. So she escapes. She gets out of the school grounds, sneaks into the normie world, which is a big deal apparently. This is kind of one of the reasons I don't think it's canon, because like in the aforementioned Ghouls Rule, we get into the normie monster relationships, and they seem to be chill, like as far as I know.
I'm a monster. I'm a monster.
I'm a monster. I'm a monster.
One of the big contenders in this book is like, oh, things with the normies are not good, but I thought we were fine, like as of 2-ish years ago, so I don't know what has happened that has made it not that way. She goes to the normie world, specifically a normie cemetery, because she's thinking a lot about like her dad, and also her mom is gone too, and so she's like thinking about that, about how like Draculaura, or see, I told you it was going to be a problem. Dracula, like there was nothing left to bury, like he was just reduced to ash, but she still wants to go to like a cemetery and mourn, so she goes there. There is a human boy there. His name is Poe. No, it's not that Poe. Don't get excited. I'm sorry. His name is Poe. He's a human dude. He is a soccer player, and he and Draculaura have some common ground in that he also lost his mom very recently, and so he is really not doing so well. School has been tough for him for the same reasons. Like his friends and his teammates just kind of don't get what he's going through, which, real, as someone who has dealt with that kind of grief, real. But yeah, so he goes there to get some solace, to visit his mom, and that's where he meets Draculaura. And so Draculaura introduces herself as Laura. I kind of thought we would get a Lala here. Lala was her nickname in the Lacey Harrison books. It's cute. Like, Laura works, I understand. Like, it makes sense, okay? I thought it would be a nice little nod to have Lala be her nickname. I think it's been her nickname in some of the other supplementary stuff as well. And they bond a little bit, and he's like, oh, can I, like, have your number or something? And she's like, oh no, because like the cell phones don't really work between the human world and the monster world, but she can't explain that to him because he does not know that monsters exist. So, you know, they just kind of go their separate ways. She goes back to school. where we learn that Pharaoh, Cleo's dad, who is a mummy, is trying to take over the school board, which is a seat that Draculaura's dad held for a very long time. And so he wants the power over the school board for whatever reason. He's just kind of like that in the series. And so he is already emptying out Draculaura's dad's office, which is very tasteless and horrible. And so she goes back and they're like emptying it out, and she's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, well, I'm gonna get elected to school board, and just kind of decides that this is his position. And then we get the other big main conflict of the book. Actually, there's two of them that are kind of introduced all at once. Draculaura is becoming less vampiric. Her fangs are getting a little duller, and sometimes when she looks in the mirror, she has a little bit of a reflection, which is not the case for her usually. And the other thing is that Monster High, the building, the school, is kind of freaking out since Dracula died. So those are two of the big threads that are running through this whole thing. And so because of the school like having some structural issues, Pharaoh is using his money and his power and his, like, what are they, jackals? His big statue guys to fearmonger and try to seize power. Relevant, Gulia inserts herself into the narrative. She's the smartest ghoul in the world. She has saved the world on multiple occasions. That is not me making stuff up. Like in one of the animated movies, she literally saves the world from an asteroid. She's just built different, I fear. And so she starts doing her own research. She's like, stuff is weird here. And she figures out that, you know, Draculaura is turning back human, and there is a way to stop this, and this method requires drinking human blood. And Draculaura, as a vegetarian vampire, is like, nope, not gonna do that. And so she gets closer to Poe a little bit, because she's like trying to learn about normies because she is turning into one, and trying to learn about like what it means to live again. Because here's the lore. Draculaura was not, in G1, in G3 I'm aware that it's different. In G1, Draculaura was not always a vampire. She was actually turned into one by Dracula. She had a human mother named Camilla, and her father was a Roman soldier. So she is 1600 years old. I don't know where that puts her birth year exactly. So her father was a Roman soldier, and he died at war. Camilla was taken in by Dracula, who loved her. Camilla was not turned into a vampire. She died of a sickness, and before Draculaura could die of the same sickness, Dracula did turn her. And so he raised her as his own. He was always trying to teach her how to use her vampiric powers, but she was never very good at it. But they had like a very sweet like relationship. He took care of her and stuff. And so yeah, so she was not born a vampire, and therefore like the vampire who sired her passed away, and as a result that is why she is turning back into a human. So she gets to know Poe better. She figures out like what it means to like be alive, and she's like really excited to kind of live this second life of hers. And she finds her mother's diary, which talks about how it was her decision to not get turned into a vampire because she wanted to live out her humanity, even if that meant that she would die. So yeah, Draculaura reads over these, and she's like, I'm ready to like live again, to like have a life, whatever that means. And then there's also the tidbit that Gulia finds, which kind of gets brushed over later, but there's a chance that because Draculaura waited so long, if she tried to turn back into a vampire, if she tried to drink blood, it might be too late, and it might just kill her anyway. So that is also a factor in her deciding, because this runs out for like a while. Like it's a while before we learn exactly what is going on. It is drawn out kind of for a really long time for no reason, as all the other threads braid themselves together. So, you know, by the time that she learns that, oh, I have to drink human blood to remain a vampire, but if I do so, I might die because I've waited too long. If you do it right away, you're probably going to be okay. If you wait a long time, like she has, it's been all of summer vacation, and then some weeks after that, probably too late. So yeah, it could kill her, right? Important. So that pretty much makes up her mind. Like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna stay human. So turn human, rather. She tells her friends. This does not go over so well. So some of them are supportive. Like Frankie is like, oh yeah, like you'll always be our friend. And Laguna specifically is like very not cool with this. And she's like, well, humans pollute the planet. Humans pollute the planet, so you're gonna be one of them now. You're gonna be one of them now, and we can't be friends anymore. And I was just like, what? Like, in no world would G1 Laguna, like, ever react like that to someone who has been her friend for years? Like, so out of character, first of all. There has to be some nuance there, right? Like, I can't bring myself to believe that monster carbon emissions are all the way zero, okay? Like, they also participate in capitalism. I feel like some of the monsters that are not sea monsters probably pollute. Like, they're not carbon free, like, they use electronics and stuff, so I don't understand why it's such a black and white issue for her to be like, well, you're gonna be a human and humans pollute. Like, so do monsters? I think. Like, again, not sure. Maybe they've found a way to get their carbon emissions all the way to zero, but, like, they use plastic goods. Like, I don't... Laguna, be so serious. This is your friend who just lost her dad. Like, she's kind of going through a lot. She's changing, kind of against her will. You know, like, you don't know all the details here. Maybe ask some follow-up questions before you freak out on her, before you crash out on her, and make her feel worse. And so, the school, you know, continuing to fall apart. Electricity is, like, zapping people at random times. The heat and the cold are very on the fritz. The pool boils Laguna at one point, which is what you might have heard of. There was this misconception that she dies in the book. That is not the case. She's very hurt by the pool boiling her and the other students in it, but she does not die. She's okay. You know, the lockers open and slam randomly, like, things are just really, really going wrong. And because of this, because the school is continuing to fall apart, normies can see past the barrier now. Like, a group of joggers gets onto campus, they gawk and they gape and they look around and they're like, oh, this is weird. You know, they get onto campus and usually they're not able to see it, first of all. Second of all, they're not able to set foot on campus, typically, with the magic protections in place. And so whatever has happened is, like, causing the school to freak out. And so the Pharaoh, like, is pushing his narrative of, oh, with me in charge, this won't happen. And it's just not the case. A group of normies, like a hate group of normies, breaks onto the campus because of, you know, the weekend protections. They kidnap Frankie. They take her. And so this changes Draculaura's mind. She needs to be at her vampire strength to save Frankie, but also Gulia makes another discovery that the school requires blood, specifically Dracula's blood, and Draculaura is the only one with that left. So to save the school, she needs to become a vampire again. To do so, she needs to drink human blood, but not only that, she needs to drink human blood from the source. And so Poe, like, offers himself up immediately. They get together at the cemetery and she drinks his blood. It does cause her to pass out because she's, first of all, like, the magic is transforming her back, but then second of all, like, she just does not like doing that. And so she passes out. When she wakes up, he is gone. And before that, they had, like, a sweet little conversation about how, like, this has to be the end for us. They can't be together because of the normie hate group and everything, and it just would not be safe for either of them to continue to be together while their worlds are so divided. And so they decide to not see each other anymore. And it's very, you know, sad-ish. She did not really know this boy. They met up, like, 3 times. Like, it's as sad as it has to be, you know, but it's just like, okay. That TikTok audio that's like, he is not the love of your life. He's just a guy. Like, hit him with your car. That is, yeah, those are my thoughts on Poe. He is literally just a guy. So she drinks his blood, she turns back into a vampire, she is, like, all powered up now, and so it turns out, like, when she was a vampire the first time, because she was a vegetarian, she did not have full access to her powers. She couldn't turn into a bat, she couldn't do mind control, like a lot of the other things, the flying and stuff. She could not do any of that. Now, she can. She is, like, super powered, goes back into the school, this is graphic, cuts her hands open, puts them on this cornerstone, and uses the Dracula blood that is in her veins to heal the school. And so the barrier goes back into place. All the normies that are climbing the fence are, like, blasted back away from the school. They can't see it anymore. But they do still have Frankie. They took her. They stuck her in a van and took her. So there's that to deal with. Also, like, while they are barricading the doors, like, Claude is there. He's been there the whole time.
The whole time, the whole time.
I read that and I was like, what? I thought you graduated. Where have you been? And it just pisses me off because, like, you're telling me they didn't have a single conversation about this whole thing. Like, her dad died, and you're telling me that Claude Wolfe, who was her boyfriend for several years, did not even, like, have the decency to, like, send a card or something? Like, she's still best friends with Claudine. Like, I have to imagine she's still in his life in some capacity, especially if they're still at the same school. Like, I totally thought he graduated, because I think he is, like, a little older than her. Is that a plot hole? Maybe I'll fact check that. That's why I thought he was, because she's a senior. So, pardon me for thinking that, I don't know. We'll get there. So yeah, all the ghouls gather together and they go to rescue Frankie. She's being held at this warehouse. They do, like, threaten to rip Frankie apart, which is very dark, I think. Laguna uses her powers to, like, flood the place with water, and then Draculaura uses her bat powers to, like, get through the vents, and gets to Frankie, frees her, like, gnaws through the ropes and whatever. And then Frankie uses her electricity powers to zap the water with all the human people in it. And then they get away. There's this, like, villain that's introduced. His name is Van. It's short for Van Helscream, which is, like, the in-universe version of Van Helsing. I mean, they could just use Van Helsing. I'm pretty sure that that's public domain, because, like, Dracula is public domain. So, anyway, Van Helscream is the established in other pieces of media, but I digress. Just kind of introduced out of nowhere, like in the third act. You could pepper that in a little more, maybe. But, yeah, so they rescue her. They get out. Draculaura uses her powers to, like, kind of disperse the crowd, but also Cleo, like, threatens them with this, like, sandstone thing that she finds. And she's like, oh, I will curse you, like, whatever. And, there's this, we get this little tidbit here. I will put it on the screen. And the rest of the book isn't like this, so I really don't understand why we need a dick joke about Deuce's penis, okay? Like, just really out of pocket. Like, there are no other... I mean, there's some innuendos a little bit, but it's not like this, like the rest of the book. So, right at the end, like, during the big, for lack of better word, climax of the book, to have this in there is just really pulled me out of the moment, let me tell you. One of those things where I had to take a picture of it and send it to the group chat, and I was like, what is this? So anyway, but yeah, while she's in there, Draculaura finds Poe's dad in the crowd. She takes Poe's notebook back from him, which is filled with details about her that Poe wrote when he was learning about the vampire world, and she uses her vampire hypnotism on him to be like,
ye shall forget everything ye know, and everything ye have known. Okay, let me listen to that back. I all sound so nasally in these things. Okay.
you need to be a better dad for your son. And, like, sends him on his merry way to hopefully do that, because he's been very neglectful since Poe's mom died. Yeah, that's kind of it. They get back to the school. Draculaura is appointed the head of the school board because she has Dracula's blood, and that is apparently what is required for the position, because it's a protective role, and the school was built with that enchantment in mind. So she is given the position that Ramses has been striving for the entire book. He gets kicked out. It's very cathartic because it's required that it has to be a member of his bloodline, and she's the only one left. The end. So usually when I do book reviews, I try to do, like, the good, the bad, those things, those thoughts, basically. The things I liked and the things that I did not like. In my Journal 3 video, it was hard for me to come up with things that I didn't like, right? Like, I loved that book so much. Very hard for me to even, like, think of things that I didn't like about it. But this book, oh boy, okay, so let's start with the things that I do like. There are some. I think Draculaura's characterization is fine. I think it is different than the rest of the canon that exists, but I think it's fine. I think her journey with grief is probably my favorite part of the book, my favorite thread throughout, because that part does feel real. Like, the journey that she goes through, like, learning who she is without her dad, overcoming, like, the way that her friends are treating her, like, going through all of this, I think is very powerful, and learning where to put her attention, and, like, making her decision about, like, how she wants to live the rest of her life, and whether she wants to live like her dad or like her mom, and eventually, like, changing her mind to save her friends. Like, I think that is all well and good. I enjoy that a lot. And, like, as Draculaura has been one of my comfort characters, like, forever, like, I just felt really bad that even she is not saved from this kind of trauma. It just, I was really sad to see her going through that, especially because, like, her dad was supposed to live forever, and she had 1,000 years with him, but it still doesn't feel like enough, you know? And so she was supposed to have him forever, and so to see her go through this trauma that she did not expect, that she felt safe from, like, that really did hurt a lot. So, well done there. Especially because it was over something as stupid as a mix-up at the pharmacy. Like, God, like, poor girl. I like Toralei and Claudine as a couple. We don't often get to see them, like, together, because they were not together in the original media that was coming out at the time, but in later stuff, like the Pride comics they did last year, like, those two were a couple. And I think in G3 they're kind of leaning that way, so we'll see where that goes. But it's nice to see them in G1, like, interacting like this. It's a little odd, like, Claudine calls Toralei kitten and stuff, but I think their chemistry is really cute, so I thought that was fine. Cleo feels pretty in character here. She and Deuce have their little will they won't they shit going on. She sides with her dad, and then she sides with her friends. Like, this is an arc we've seen for her before, so this feels very familiar. And I like the inclusion of the side characters. You know, we get mentions of people that we are familiar with, from Jackson Jekyll, my beloved boy. Abby's there, Spectra's there, Heath is there, Heath Burns, Manny Tor, you know, so it's not all the dolls. I mean, Manny did have a doll, but it was a collector's edition thing. So, you know, nice to see, like, the side characters being represented. I enjoyed when they had their little cameos and such. And No Gil. We love to see No Gil. He transferred to a different school, so he was not even here. But yeah, that's kind of it. Those are the things that I liked. And now we are getting into the things that I didn't like. At the surface level, the Monster High language is way too much at certain points. It's a fun thing that they do in the movies and the other media. You see it in the product line names, either, like the Boo Original, Cree Productions. You're taking normal words and making them, like, monstery, which is fun. Fantastic is a common one. Creeperific, they eat lunch in the creepateria. Like, that's fine. That's all fine. There are, like, uses of it in here that I feel are very excessive. Definitely was one that really stood out to me. What do we have? Oh, at one point they refer to the buddy system, like, you and a buddy, like, don't split up, buddy system kind of thing, as the bloody system, and it was just very confusing, like, the way that that is spelled out. I was like, are we British all of a sudden? Like, what's up with the bloody system? So just, some of them just don't make sense on paper, and I feel that you as an author have to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, these ones are fine and good and they work, and these ones do not, and just kind of pull back on it. Like, you don't have to use every single fun word. Like, even Monster High canon material, like, does not use every single one if it, like, doesn't work. So just kind of, you know, be a little more frugal with them, I feel. And then there's the Poe of it all. Like, I just don't really like him. Like, he's fine, okay? He's a sweet kid. He's going through a lot. I have nothing, like, against him. But like I said earlier, he is just a guy. Like, he exists as a plot device that is there. He has the same trauma as Draculaura, so they relate on that level. He's human, so they relate on that level, like, as she becomes more human. But other than that, like, the kid kind of has no personality. He kind of, like, does not really stand out to me at all, in terms of Monster High love interest. And I'm not saying this just because I'm a Claude stan, but I really could not get into him, and I was hoping, like, I read on the back, like, there was a human kid involved, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting direction we're taking. I just did not really vibe with him the way that you need to, like, as a Monster High love interest. Yeah, and also, like I mentioned earlier, they barely know each other, so they have this whole big, like, dramatic breakup. They've known each other for less than a month, I think. Maybe a month if we're being generous. It just really did not work for me, like, the two of them, and for them to be like, oh, I love you, oh, it's so sad. And I get, like, when you're in high school, like, all those things are elevated, like, that's how you feel about stuff. But it just really, it didn't work for me, basically. And then there's the bit where, like, the plot is just a mess. Like, I'm sure you could tell by the way I was describing it, but things just kind of happen. Like, they aren't really tied into each other the way they need to be. It's just, it bounces back and forth between the threads so haphazardly. It's like, oh, Dracula's turning human. Okay, the Pharaoh stuff is going on, and then the school is falling apart, and then we're back to the Pharaoh stuff, and then this is happening, and then she's going to see Poe, and then we're going back to the school, and then we're doing this. And it's it's so unmemorable that I could not string you the full plot together. Like, the way that things happen, the jumble that it is, like, it's just impossible to, like, make any memorable moments out of it. Like, even all the Poe moments kind of bleed together, like, to me. Like, there is not a specific memory that I can call to mind of the two of them together. There's a bit where they're at the cemetery, there's a bit where they're at the house. That's kind of it. Like, and I think there are a few more cemetery moments. There's obviously the big one, like he lets her drink his blood, that's a big moment. But all the other moments leading up to that, I could not pull them apart for the life of me. And that goes the same with every other plot point. Like, I don't remember the specific things at the school getting worse. I don't remember the specific bits with Pharaoh. I think the girls have, like, a girls' night at one point. And that's kind of it. Like, it's so... it's bad. It's just a mess. Like, it just doesn't... It's not even a good story. Like, on top of the rest of that, like, I just cannot remember any of it. And I read this recently, okay? And I was taking notes the whole time, and I still just, none of it stuck. It was just such a blob of nothing, unfortunately. And also, like, Van getting introduced, like, right at the end there, and they're, like, acting like this is the first time they've ever met a Van Helscream. Did we forget about this diva? Like, that... she was there, I fear. So I don't know what timeline this is taking place in, because it does disregard a lot of the stuff that happens in the cartoon. Just very unfortunate. It like, I can't tell if Tiffany Schmidt, the author of this book, I can't tell if she's a Monster High fan or not. Like, she kind of mentions in the acknowledgments that she is, or at the very least she was excited to write this in the Monster High universe. She was, like, grateful for the opportunity. But I just felt like she was not familiar enough with the material to be writing a book like this. Frankly, as an author and a Monster High fan, I don't feel like she was the woman for this job. So, I'm sorry if that's harsh, but I just did not feel like her heart was in it, and I felt like she kind of couldn't figure out what to write. And I don't know, like, on a corporate level, how much Mattel has to do with the writing of this book, like what information they're giving her, if they're giving her the plot line and like everything. I can only assume they're like, hey, we want a book about Draculaura, maybe like a general overview, like Dracula dies, like her journey with this, and then just kind of let her run with it. I don't know how much oversight Mattel has, but it just felt like it was not given the same juice as the other things in the Monster High universe, and it felt like Tiffany kind of did not have all the information at her disposal, and then just kind of went crazy with the Monster High-isms and thought that would make up for it. And also, like, a lot of the characters are kind of out of character. Like I said about Laguna earlier, like, she would not say that to one of her best friends. She would be... And I understand that you need someone to argue to, like, make her feel bad. That can be Toralei. I don't remember how she reacted in the moment. Could have been Toralei. Could have been Cleo maybe a little bit. But even Cleo is, like, loyal. You know, like, all of these ghouls, like, I don't feel like any of them at the point that they are in after everything they've been together, none of them would treat Draculaura like this. But especially, like, we kind of brush over the fact that this could kill her. She doesn't tell her friends that, and maybe she should, like when Laguna is giving her shit, like, hey, if I go through this transformation, it might kill me anyway. But the way that Laguna treats her is frankly unacceptable and would not ever be something that she said to her in the first place. Laguna is very chill, like, in the friend group. She is the least high maintenance. She's an athlete. She's very cool. She's on the swim team. She's typically very level-headed and, like, adventurous and just, like, not like that. She would not ever treat Draculaura like that and would not ever be like, well, you're gonna be a human, you're gonna pollute the earth, like, we can't be friends anymore. She would not say that to her after everything that she's been through. Just kind of feels like she doesn't understand the source material. And they're so desperate to be like, yeah, this is G1, this is alumni. Like, no, like, she did not act like that in G1, and I'm not familiar enough with G3, like, maybe she's like that now, but I don't think that's the case either. Like, and also, like, the writing is just bad at points. There are some very cringe lines that I was just like, oh, like reading through, like the deuce thing. I was like, this is not necessary. I don't know why this is here. Felt gross, felt bad, but there's just a lot of lines where I was reading it, and I have this problem with traditionally published books sometimes where they just kind of don't get it, and I just felt like it very much felt like a 40-something, and I don't know how old Tiffany Schmidt is, okay, but this is how I felt about a lot of the YA books that I read in high school, where it's like a 40-year-old lady that doesn't know how teenagers talk, and that is how this felt a lot of the time. So, and also just like a lot of tonal whiplash, like they would be in life or death situations, like especially at the end of the book, Frankie has been kidnapped, they're trying to figure out how to save her, and they're cracking jokes and stuff. And I get that these are teenagers, but this is a life or death situation. You have to be able to balance the tone a little bit, especially when they're able to do that in the original material, in Ghoul's Rule, when Holt is kidnapped and almost about to die. Like, it's very serious. They're not cracking jokes. They are on a mission to go save him.
Yo, Frankie!
Don't worry, Holt. We're gonna get you out of here.
Worried? Who? The Holster? Come on, Frankie, fine.
Maybe they're being a little quippy, but it's like on the mission. They're not joking about stuff. Like, they are on a mission to save someone, and they understand urgency and when to be serious about things. And I think it just undercuts a lot of the characterization, and yeah, the tone is just all over the place. I can't tell if she's trying to write a serious, like, this is grounded, this is edgy, this is grown-up Monster High, or if she is trying to write it in the tone of the original cartoons, and it cannot be both of those things. It has to be one of those things, and it feels like she just didn't want to pick, and she was just kind of writing it both ways. And that blend just really doesn't work here. It does work in certain shows, in certain genres. It just does not work in this book because of the way that it is written. Yeah. You shouldn't be making a tasteless dick joke in the middle of the climax of your book if you want to be taken seriously. Yeah, those are my thoughts, long-winded thoughts on Once Bitten, Twice Dead. My final review is 2.5 stars. I cannot in good conscience give it a rating any higher than that. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Did you give Once Bitten, Twice Dead a read? Am I being too harsh on this book? Let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. I'm sure some people did like it. I was reading through Goodreads reviews and some people seem to enjoy it, but a lot of people seem to be sitting about where I am with this book, just kind of frustrated that it exists. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to more Monster High books? I wonder if they will write more based on the ratings. I wonder how it sold also. Very curious about all of that, but I guess we'll see. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day, and as always, take your meds, drink your water, and I will see ya when I see ya.